So today I thought I would do a little video of a comparison between a silicone baby and a normal vinyl reborn. So I have Grace, my little Knox by Lolly Eagles, and then this is my little silicone baby. This is the Rihanna sculpt by Nadine Dolatova. So I thought I would do a little comparison between these two babies. Now obviously we're just going to exclude the fact that Grace has closed eyes and this baby has open eyes, so I'm not really going to talk about their eyes because you can get a silicone baby with closed eyes and you can have a reborn with open eyes, so I'm not really going to talk about that. But other than that, I'm going to talk about everything else. So the first thing I just want to do is take off their clothes and just keep the little nappies on. So I'm just going to undress them now. Okay, so I have just undressed them both and just written a couple notes. So there's going to be 5 main things that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about movement, care, enjoyment, realism, and just other things that didn't fit into any of those categories. Start with movement, which I think is the biggest one in my opinion. But just before we get started, I did just want to say I'm trying to just make this a comparison, so just comparing the features of a silicone baby to the features of a vinyl baby. I'm not like doing like a pros and cons or whatever. I'm not trying to say, oh, vinyl babies are bad or silicone babies are bad. I'm just trying to compare them. So if you're wanting to buy a silicone baby or a vinyl baby, then you know like all their features and stuff. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to get started with movement. I'm just going to move the babies this way. Okay, so I've just moved Grace over there so we can start with the silicone baby. So we're just going to start with movement. Babies are very movable and posable. So her arm is sculpted like straight, I would say, like pretty outstretched, but her arm can move like that. She does not have armature, so their hand would like stay better in that position, like you can squish it into place, but her arm can move like that or like lay it across her tummy, and then obviously all her fingers are bendable as well. Some babies, their arm is sculpted bent, so it'd be a little bit harder to stretch it out like that, but it just depends on the sculpt. This baby does not have a ball jointed head, she is all one piece, so a ball jointed baby would have more movement in their head, but a baby with their head connected to their body doesn't have as much movement. You can move it with your hand, but her head doesn't really stay like in that position. But I've found when posing her head sort of wants to just stay like this. Like it'll stay like this for a little bit, but then as you move her, it'll just want to go back into its regular position. Same with her legs. This baby's legs are sculpted sort of half bent, but her legs can be outstretched like this, or they can be brought up like this and squashed up. She can move her legs. She cannot rotate her legs, so her legs don't rotate, they just can really bend. And then her little ankle can bend too, and then all of her toes as well bend, so her head can go up or her head can flop back. So that's all really for movement. Now I'm just going to put my camera down to show you what it looks like when I pick her up. And then when you pick her up, you sort of have to hold her underneath her head. I'll do this hand, and then underneath her bum, and then you can see her arms sort of go beside her, so sort of have to, it's a little bit hard picking up a little silicone baby, but you sort of have to scoop them up like that. You just have to sort of get the hang of it. I still haven't gotten the hang of it. That is really the movement of a silicone baby. Now I will move on to Grace, my vinyl baby. So with Grace, or with any vinyl baby. Usually their limbs are sculpted bent, although some limbs are sculpted straight out like this, that they will have to stay in that bent shape, but you can move them up and down. You can really rotate them all the way around, but they can move up and down and all around. Same with this arm, you can move it up and down. So vinyl babies are posable, but you just can't change the way that their arms and legs are bent. So same with her legs, she's got sculpted bent legs, but they can move up and down like a silicone baby can't. So her legs could move up like that. Whereas with a silicone baby, obviously if you try to move it up, they're just going to flop back down. As you can pose her with her leg up in the air. Move all the way to the side so she can lay like that. And she can move her head all the way around as well, like that. So I'm going to pick her up as well and show you what it looks like. When picking up a vinyl baby, the way that they move is going to depend on how they're weighted. So obviously if they have more weight in their arms and legs, they're going to be a bit more floppy. Okay, so Grace has quite a bit of weighting in her head. So you can see when you pick her up, her head flops like that. So you do have to sort of, I usually put my fingers behind her neck, so when I pick her up, her head's not so floppy. And if I was to just, let me try and cradle her head. If I was just trying to pick her up like that, you can see her arms don't really move, because she has weighted arms, but not so heavy that they're going to flop back. Like when I picked up my silicone baby, her arms flopped all the way by her side. And same with her legs. Her legs don't really move much, but obviously if you weighted a baby differently, they may flop a bit more. But the main thing with a vinyl limb baby is how much their head falls back. So that's really all I have to say for movement. I'm really sorry if I missed some things. This is just things that I can compare, like remember to compare. So the next thing we're going to talk about is care. So we're going to start with the silicone baby. Now with a silicone baby, they get sticky because they're made of the silicone. Even though they get matte, like powdered when they're first made, that can wear off and they can start to become a little bit sticky. This baby's a little bit sticky, she needs a powder. So you do have to every once in a while brush a silicone baby over with powder just to make it easier to dress them, so their arms and legs don't stick to the insides of their clothes too much and they don't pick up dust, because you don't really want dust all over your baby. If they're powdered, it's easier to just brush the dust off if there is anything, whereas if they're sticky, it will actually stick to them and you'll have to try and pick it off. The next thing is you sometimes may have to bathe your baby. I think bathing, in my opinion, is more of a enjoyment aspect, but sometimes if you wanted to, you could bathe your baby as well, but we'll get onto that in enjoyment because it's less of a care thing and more just something you can do for fun. You do have to be very careful when changing a silicone baby because they're so floppy, and especially if they have separated fingers, and this baby has quite small wrists, so you've got to be careful that you don't want to pull on her wrists too much when changing her, and also her feet. So yeah, it takes probably twice as long for me to change a silicone baby than a vinyl baby. The next thing is just about hair. This baby is bald, but if you did have a silicone baby with rooted hair, there is no way for an artist to seal the rooted hair into a silicone doll because they are solid silicone, so there's no way to get up in the middle, in the inside of her head to glue her hair in. Like this baby has rooted eyebrows and they've been glued from the outside, but usually with rooted hair on the top they wouldn't glue it into place, so you can style it and everything. Even if you're not brushing the hair, from them laying down it might get just caught on the blanket, and just when you pick them up, a bit of hair might fall out. So that's the only thing if you're going to have a baby with rooted hair and it's silicone. Next, we will move on to the vinyl baby. So unlike a silicone, these babies do not get sticky. They are matte varnished, and when they're painted, they are just like, they don't get sticky. They're just like a nice, if your baby is textured, they might have a little bit of roughness, or if they're not textured, they'll be smooth. Grace is sort of in the middle. And so that means when cleaning them, you really just have to brush dust off. I have this blush brush specifically for dusting my reborns. So you would just gently go in there and try to get out the dust. So it's very easy because the dust is not actually going to stick to your vinyl baby. You just need to brush it away if there is anything on them. So yeah, and you don't need to bathe a vinyl baby, and you really can't. You could gently wipe them over with a damp cloth if you really feel like they need a bit of a clean, but mostly a little brush like this, you can just brush them all over and they will be pretty clean after that. They are very easy to change as far as like movement goes. They don't like move around as much. Like when you're changing a silicone baby, like obviously her legs move all around, whereas this baby's, her limbs stay put, so she's quite easy to change. The only thing I would say about with changing vinyl babies is if they have open hands, you just have to be careful with them, but that's more for rubbing of the paint rather than on a silicone baby. It's more about trying to make sure you don't like pull a finger off, you know. So the vinyl baby's just worrying about paint rubbing, but they are very easy to change. You can change them pretty quick, just slide their arms and legs in pretty easily. And then the last thing is about their hair. So Grace has rooted hair. Not all reborns have rooted hair. You can get painted hair or a bald baby. But if your baby does have rooted hair, it will most likely be rooted by the artist and then glued from the inside of their head so that their hair will not come out. It definitely doesn't just come out when they're lying down. Like she's not going to have any hair left when I pick her up, whereas a silicone baby may have some hair that's just fallen out. So that's really all I have to say about care. The only other thing is if your baby's body did get dirty for some reason, you can take your baby apart, take the stuffing out and just chuck this in the washing machine, like obviously without the baby's limbs on it. The next thing we're going to talk about is enjoyment. So I'm going to go back over to the silicone baby. So I'm going to talk about bathing because like I said earlier, I see bathing as more of an enjoyment factor rather than a care, because you don't have to bathe them. For enjoyment, they are squishy because I know lots of people like the squishiness of the silicone babies. So you can see she's quite squishy. It will obviously depend on what type of silicone your baby is. This baby is a soft blend. Next is therapeutic. Lots of people like silicones because they're therapeutic. Like you sort of have to care for them more like a real baby. Like you have to do a few more things. So some people consider silicone babies more therapeutic depending on what you're wanting the doll for. They are very cuddly. They cuddle up any which way you want. So when you pick them up, you can cuddle them all up. Obviously they're not going to stay in that position. You have to hold them in that position, but they will cuddle up any way you want. And then the last thing I have for enjoyment is they can wear any clothes. They can wear nothing like this baby is. She's just wearing her nappy. She can wear just singlets with like the little spaghetti straps. She can wear open back dresses. So yeah, she can really wear any clothes that you want her to wear. So now we're going to go to the vinyl baby. So what I've written is, I have put cuddly on the enjoyment for a vinyl baby because vinyl babies are still cuddly, and I find in some ways a little bit more cuddly only because you don't have to hold them in that position. it will depend on how your baby is sculpted, but you can see Grace's arms sort of go up like that, and her legs can cuddle up like that, and they'll hold the like form themselves, whereas a silicone baby, you have to hold her leg in that shape while you're cuddling her. The next thing is easy to handle. I put this in enjoyment because in my opinion, it's more enjoyable for me to have a doll that's easier to handle. That might be different for some people, but for me, I like being able to handle them a little bit easier. Vinyl babies cannot wear all types of clothes, but they can still wear singlets with like the little straps like that. And if your baby has a tummy plate, which Grace does, which I'll just get. So Grace does have a tummy plate, and vinyl babies can have a torso, a full torso, half torso, stuff like that. And you can also get a back plate. But here is Grace's belly plate. So I'm just going to put that on her quickly. Okay, there we go. There's Grace with her belly plate. She can wear little shirts and have her belly showing and stuff like that. She could also wear little spaghetti straps. The only thing is it does end right there, so you would probably just do things like from the front. Like she couldn't really wear an open back dress because she'd still have her cloth. The next thing is realism. So silicone babies are quite floppy and they're quite realistic in the way that they move. I think that you can achieve the same realism painting wise in both babies, just the way that the silicone baby falls and moves is a little bit more realistic. And the last thing is other. This was just sort of things that didn't fit into the other categories. So for a vinyl baby, you can, if they don't have an open mouth, you will need to put a magnet behind their lips, inside their head, for them to take a dummy. Some silicone babies will have an open mouth. Some babies don't, but some will have an open mouth. So she can take that whole dummy. You saw she had that in her mouth earlier. So she could take that all in her mouth. And she does not have a magnet. Some kits like Twin A can take a partial dummy. And the last thing, which I touched on earlier, is you can control the weight of a vinyl baby. A silicone baby, you can't really control how heavy they're going to be because they're just going to be as heavy as the silicone like makes them to be, if that makes sense. Like I can't make this baby lighter than she is, whereas if I one day go, oh, Grace is a little bit heavy for me, I can take a little bit of weight out of her head or out of her body, or if one day I wanted to make her heavier, I can add weight to her limbs or her body or her head. So you can customize the weight with a vinyl baby a little bit better. So that is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and I hope it was informative. I tried to think of everything I could to compare a vinyl baby compared to a silicone baby. So if you have any questions, please let me know and I will try and answer them as best as I can. So yeah, hope you enjoyed and we'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!